Hi there. Um, I know that this is late and I apologize, but I was off pretty much a majority of last week for Halloween festivities, so I'm back now. It is now November 4th, so you're actually going to be getting 4 reviews today, but I promise you after that, it's only one a day. This is just a one-time thing to get me caught up, but yeah, it's time for another DisneyVember. It has been a while since we talked about Disney on this channel, I believe. But we're back to it, and this time, instead of going forwards, we're going backwards. We're going to be talking about all the classic Disney movies that we couldn't review last time. Now keep in mind, I'm still only talking about the ones from Walt Disney Animation Studios. I'm not talking about Pixar, I'm not talking about Marvel, and I'm not talking about Star Wars. This is specifically Walt Disney Animation Studio filmography. And I'm going to go over all the old ones leading up to where we left off, which was Aladdin and Lion King. So that is this review, Snow White, all the way up to Beauty and the Beast, what many people consider one of the best Disney movies of all time. It's going to be a first-time watch for me, as will many of these. Not all of them, I have seen a grand majority of these, but there are some in here that I have not seen before. Like the original Little Mermaid, for example. That's going to be a first-time watch. But this one sure as heck isn't. I've seen this one a couple times. So, let's talk about it. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station. I'm Resistor for anything animation, including TV and movies as well. I'm your host, Jackson Small. Welcome to DisneyVember 2. Let's kick it off with Disney's first ever movie from way back in 1931. That being Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And yes, as you can see, I have the Masterpiece Collection version. I know this is on DVD, but I wanted to get this because I love these Masterpiece Collection VHS tapes. They look so good together, which I will show you at the end of the month once we're done reviewing all of them. Now, I don't have all of them, but I have most of them. So, yeah. And I also have a pretty long written review for this one, too. So, without further ado or delay, here's my spoiler-free review for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a movie that's, I'm pretty sure, almost, if not over, 100 years old. I hope you guys enjoy. Time for another Disney Animation Studios marathon. This time I'm going all the way back to the beginning and covering all the original classics of the company's history I couldn't get to last year. Because last year we only had about, 23 days, because we had to go from the beginning of the month all the way to the 23rd, which was when Wish came out, so... But this time we have a little bit more time than that. So that is Snow White all the way up to Beauty and the Beast, with the exclusion of the odd short compilation films like Three Calaberos. Like, I'm not going to review Three Calaberos or that other one I'm already forgetting the name of. I'm not reviewing those ones. Those are just compilations of shorts released as movies. However, I will review Ichabod and Mr. Toad, specifically because I want to talk about Sleepy Hollow. So, yeah, that one is the one exclusion to that. But I'm not reviewing Three Calaberos, and I'm not reviewing the other one, whatever it was called. It wasn't Merry Melodies, that's Warner Brothers. You know what, editing, just correct me later. Use some kind of site and correct me later. Alright, so, with that out of the way, let's start with Snow White. It's one of the many I proudly own on VHS in the Masterpiece Collection, and I've always really enjoyed it. Sure, it's simple and pretty dated by today's standards. This is almost, or if not over, 100 years old. But it does have a charm to it. I'm falling off script. But the animation is still really beautiful even all these years later, and it has such an undeniable charm that's hard to turn away from it, even though this is a Disney princess movie. Not to mention, Snow White was the first ever Disney princess, and the Evil Queen was the first of many iconic villains, so it's still more than significant in Disney's overall history today. Not to mention, this was Disney's first ever animated movie. Like, this was their first ever one. So, it's definitely very significant in the history of Disney as a company. So, that being said, though, this is still a movie from the early 1930s, and it does have its drawbacks due to its time period. The story is very paper-thin. The pacing is very slow. There are a few animation errors. As beautiful as this movie looks animation-wise, there are still some errors. It's mainly in the background. You won't see it unless you're paying attention. A lot of runtime is spent on exposition dumping and dancing. Kind of just how it was back then. The prince is a glorified plot device. Yeah, I'm not going to mince words. The prince in this movie, up until the very end, is pretty much useless. He does nothing. It's not like the prince in Sleeping Beauty, where he actually fights the main villain. He does not do that. He shows up in one scene, then goes away, and then comes back at the end for a Deus Ex Machina. That's pretty much it. Outside of that, he's just there to be there. And the music is okay, but forgettable. The music in this movie is not very good. Snow White's singing is really pretty, but the lyrics are very of its time. For me, it's actually because of the Dwarfs that this movie is so much fun. Sure, it's not the first time we've seen this kind of dynamic before on film, with these multiple different personalities in one room together. It has been done many times before in many different other movies. But it's one of the first in animation, which made it pretty fascinating. Not only that, but the dwarves themselves are absolutely hilarious, and their banter is the biggest highlight of the overall film. Also, the first of many delightfully gruesome villain deaths towards the end that'll greatly satisfy the lovers of dark media. AKA, if you're a screwed up horror nut like me, you're gonna love that. Overall, it is astonishing how well this holds up today, despite being maybe 100 years old, if not or even more than that, and how enjoyable it is as an animated movie overall. Sure, it is simple, and it is really slow, but once it gets to the dwarves, it becomes a very entertaining and fun movie that will no doubt enchant anyone entranced by its charm. And for animation historians, it's a must-watch as it's the beginning of one of the biggest companies in film history. And just one of the biggest companies in history in general. I mean, this is Disney we're talking about here. So, if you haven't seen this movie yet, check it out. Don't let the fact that this is a Disney princess movie scare you away. It is appealing to a wide audience, and if you get sucked in by its charm, you'll have a really good time. Not to mention the dwarves themselves are just hilarious, and they definitely make this movie a lot better than you think it would. Not to mention the evil queen. She's a decent villain, but she gets an amazing villain death. One of the most gruesome in all of Disney. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I've got to say about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's a great movie, check it out. Final verdict is going to be a high 8 out of 10. It is a great, solid start for Disney's long filmography. And I'm proud to own this VHS tape. Not to mention what's also cool about these VHS tapes is that since these are later releases of the original movie, because back then they didn't prioritize physical media like they do now, this has like some cool little bonus material at the end that talks about like the making of it, some of the animation techniques. Like, it's really cool. So you can find this movie pretty easily on whatever format you'd like. I just go with old school VHS because I like that old vintage feel. But it is available on DVD, Blu-ray, 4K, in multiple different anniversary editions. So it's easy to find if you want to check it out. Not to mention, if you are one of those streaming people, it's on Disney+. So you should not have any problem finding this movie. Give it a watch, and if it ends up not being for you, that's okay. But honestly, in my opinion, even as someone who's not really that big of a Disney princess fan, I really enjoy this one. And for the first ever Disney princess, it is a pretty solid film that they're probably gonna end up massacring next year with that awful Rachel Zegler remake garbage. So, yeah. Don't watch that piece of trash. Watch the original. It is far more worth your time than that god-awful garbage ever will. So, yes, I'm calling it garbage even though it's not out yet, because everything I've seen about it, it just looks like absolute garbage. Anyway, I think I've said enough about Snow White. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. And I'll see you guys next time when we get to Disney's second ever animated film, Pinocchio.
I'll soon forget. So listen and you won't regret. Be true to yourself, don't miss your chance, and you won't end up like the fool who